Okay, so we are now live. Hello and welcome everyone. Good morning and thank you for joining us today for our webinar. The future of volunteering is inclusive. My name is Atlyn Forde. I'm the CEO of Communicate Inclusively and I'm delighted to welcome you all. So volunteering has always been the cornerstone of community support, but recent trends have shown a decline in volunteer numbers. According to the National Council for Voluntary Organisations, only 17% of people in England participated in formal volunteering in 2022. This is the lowest rate since records began. This decline presents significant challenges for charities and non-profits that rely on volunteers to achieve their missions. At Communicate Inclusively, we specialise in helping organisations to build inclusive workplace cultures through D&I audits, strategy development, research and communications. As we approach Volunteer Week, we thought it would be beneficial to focus on how inclusivity in volunteer recruitment can attract a diverse range of individuals and reinvigorate the sector. I'm really pleased to introduce my co-host, Moncia Nsue. She's the D&I Executive and Community Outreach Specialist. We are also joined by our esteemed guest speakers, Tasio Cabello, who's the Head of Community Engagement at Age UK, Kensington and Chelsea, and Aaishah, who's a Volunteer Manager at the Macular Society. Thank you all for being here today. Please feel free to add your questions for all of us during this discussion today. I'm going to hand over to Monica, who's going to do the opening remarks and to kick off our conversation.
Thank you, Atlyn. We are thrilled to have you all here today to discuss such an important topic. Our goal today is to explore the current state of volunteering, the challenge of declining volunteer pool, and the benefits of adopting more inclusive approach to volunteer recruitment. Aaishah, please, can you give us a brief briefing about yourself and your role?
Monica, yes. My name is Aaishah and I am the volunteer manager for the Macular Society. The Macular Society is a fairly medium-sized organisation within the visual impairment sector. And we work with individuals from all backgrounds that essentially have macular degeneration, which includes, loss of your central vision from the middle of your eye, the retina. It does not necessarily mean that you'll go blind, but it means that with time and age, your retina tends to deteriorate, and so does your eyesight. We work with individuals that are experiencing macular degeneration, as well as their friends or family members or people that they work with. And we provide services across the UK within communities to help and support people to live their lives independently as possible. That's the Macular Society, and myself, personally, I've been a volunteer manager there for I think it's just come up to 2 years this May. And before that, my background has been in volunteer management and program management within the third sector for, I think, about 10 years now. So yeah, that's me.
Okay, thank you, Aaishah. I see that you have an extensive background. I think that we are going to get benefit of you today. Thank you so much for coming again. And Tasio, please, can you give us a briefing about yourself?
Oh, hi. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm working for Age UK in Kensington and Chelsea. It could be a bit confusing because each Age UK is completely independent. So each borough will have different Age UKs and we collaborate, etc. But we are fully independent charities. And in Kensington and Chelsea, we got a good number of services, and most of them led by volunteers. And obviously, without a volunteer, nothing that we can do. My role is the head of community engagement, meaning that I can oversee many of the services that are with volunteers, from escorting, befriending, the shopping, the DIY, some of the health talks that we do, etc. So all of them involve volunteers, and I've been here for too long, about probably 18 years, more than 18 years. But before I was a volunteer, actually I started as a volunteer myself. I had a full-time job at that time, but evening, weekends I used to do gardening, and then just pure destiny of I ended working for Age UK in Kensington and Chelsea. And we provide all the type of services for people to mainly to carry on being independent at home. And that could be from informational advice to make sure that the benefits are all right, and issue with housing. We provide, support with shopping, with, a little DIY task, with services with dementia. We got a Macular group support as well. So all those services that making sure that people can live in their own houses independently as much as possible.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tasio. It's going to be very interesting to have your point of view as a volunteer and also now as a head of engagement. It's very interesting. Thank you. So talking about the current stage of volunteering, my first question is going to be for you, Tasio. Atlyn mentioned that the decline of volunteer numbers. So can you share some insights into the current state of volunteering within the UK charity sector and its impacts on organizations like yourself, like Age UK, Chelsea, and Kensington?
Well, I think like not only for organizations like Educate, Kensington, and Chelsea, we are kind of medium and small charity. I think it goes to everyone. But I think in the last few years, and not let's forget now about the pandemic and the whole thing that had to be readapted to that extreme situation. But even coming after the pandemic, I think that all the trends for volunteering are changing. So traditional people will maybe stay for longer, and maybe people who will retire and want to do something else. But now people seem to have something more specific in mind, and the numbers are lower. And one thing that we have noticed that you have to be far more proactive looking for volunteers. Before, you will have people calling you. Still, we get the odd one, but now you have to be far more proactive. And definitely, things like the cost of living has an impact. People like, before we have maybe some people that got the kids in the school, and then the mother goes or the father a few hours, and they would like to do some voluntary work. And now those people are actually looking for a paid job, because they are really hitting the money at the end of the month, and they need to look for paid job, not voluntary work. And so that is linking what I was saying before. We have to be far more proactive. I mean, we got really good link with university, etc. Which is connection. Can everyone hear me? Something kind of went off for a little bit.
Yes.
And not only about being more proactive, but also to be far more creative. And then it depends on the way that you have the connection that you have. We got a volunteer center. You really need to expand all your network to be able to provide that kind of, or cover that need for the volunteers that you have. And that could be working with other local organizations for a specific particular group that we can talk later, or the volunteer center, working with local authorities, working with corporate, and that's quite important as well. And corporate can provide that. You have to work hard. That's kind of the main point. And then if you can, and depending on resources, adapt to maybe technology. We manage now to get the application forms they've been sending to us by post, and the whole thing. It's a kind of one of the electronic form that is linked to our database, so the information goes straight to our database. So we save some time, and that time of admin you can actually use it for recruitment and so on. But definitely the numbers are lower, and you need to fight harder to get those numbers.
Okay, so I see that it's time to be more creative then inside the charity sector. Thank you so much.
Definitely more proactive, yeah.
Thank you so much, Tasio, for your answer. It was very interesting. And Aaishah, I have a question for you. So volunteering, as we know, is not a one-way street in terms of benefit. So what will you say that are the personal benefits that the individual can gain from volunteering?
I actually said this to Atlyn yesterday, and I said, you'll probably hear me repeat this 1,000 times if you ever work with me, but volunteering is a two-way street. And I think traditionally we've always assumed, like Tasio was saying, volunteers come to you because they have some time and they want to do something. And I guess traditionally people did face-to-face roles because they had some time and they wanted to connect with their local community and do something on the ground. And that's part of why they did it, because, you know, they wanted that networking experience, or they wanted to get to know people around them within their communities. Now that kind of volunteering is changing slightly and we're all online, and, you know, I guess we have more opportunities and so on, it's still that kind of thing. It's that two-way street. And people don't just selflessly volunteer, even if they really believe in what your organization stands for, and they, you know, they kind of, you know, understand those values and so on. They're still doing it because they want to get something out of it, and that's absolutely fine. So I think when it comes to volunteering, you want to have a role that benefits your organization and your clientele or your service users, but at the same time, you want to make sure that the volunteers who are taking that role on, they're getting as much out of it as possible, because you want them to stay long term. And I guess for volunteers, you know, if you look at different demographics, so if you look at students, for example, for them, it's about adding something that's really valuable to their CV, that will stand out to employers in the long term, to kind of show that, you know, they're really committed to something, that they stand for something, but, you know, they're quite hardworking. They've done this something else as extracurricular alongside, for example, their university or college. And it shows that, you know, they're good at kind of like networking, and, you know, taking on additional responsibilities and so on. And I guess working age people or young adults, for them, it's just, you know, maybe again, it's about networking, it's about getting to know other individuals within their communities. And I guess with older people, it's about networking again, and also getting to know other people, maybe where they live, or people from similar backgrounds. So it's always kind of give and take. And for volunteers specifically, you know, volunteering is a great opportunity to meet other people that have a similar mindset to them. So there's definitely lots and lots of different advantages that people can pull up on. And I think it's really crucial that people that are looking for volunteers recognize that volunteering is all about giving back to the volunteer as well as the community or their clientele as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I suppose that you will use the volunteer week to recognize all those services that the volunteers are doing. I hope you have something special in mind. Okay, thank you so much. Over
Can
to
I
you.
just add something? I think that for us, what we always said from the beginning is that we do not question the reason why volunteers want to do volunteer work, or you know, everyone will have different reasons, and as far as, you know, they are committed and it's fitting, and we're providing the service for clients, we will give the other part back. And obviously, like Aaishah said, it's just about, you know, people for CVs or different reasons and so on. As you treat them as colleagues. And unfortunately, they don't get paid at the end of the month, but they don't feel that, you know, they're like second class, and they're coming here to do the work that you don't want to do. And but, you know, I think it's that's important that you do not question, and I think that's just a really good point to start. Not questioning the reason why people want to do volunteer work. Yeah.
Thank you, Tasio. Good point. Thank you so much.
Yeah, some great answers there. And I also heard one of the benefits can be in terms of meeting like-minded people, that I've heard that volunteers have actually gone on to get married. And so again, I think that's one of the other benefits, but also maybe learning new skills, as well as obviously bringing their expertise. I think they get to learn a lot as well whilst they're volunteering. So lots of benefits, and maybe during the recruitment process, it could be beneficial to highlight the benefits. Maybe people don't actually realise, you know, how much they can gain from volunteering. So I think it's definitely worth noting that. So on to the next question, which is for Tasio. The data suggests that volunteering tends to appeal to a certain demographic groups, and not necessarily a wide pool as we'd like. And why do you think that is? And why is it important really to broaden the appeal and to recruit a more diverse pool of volunteers?
Well, I think probably that really depends very much in the area. In London, I think we are quite privileged in the way that I think the data suggested that over 50% now, just over 50% of people living in London are not from British white British background. So, would this, you know, give us a better kind of platform for us? And in Kensington and Chelsea, definitely there's a good variety of different groups and backgrounds. And I mean, just can give you a little piece of information. Yesterday, my colleague Teresa did an induction. Out of 5 volunteers, only one was white British, and the rest was, you know, one from Turkey, the other one from China. So it's that kind of really good diversity, and that helped. And I think that there was mentioning the group of volunteers that we go for the shopping, 8 volunteers, and in 8 volunteers that we have, there are men, there are women, there are lesbian, there are gays, there are people with a bit of physical disabilities. We got some people with white British background, some people black career background, some people with other ethnicities. So it's a small group of 8. It's a huge representation, and that's, I think, one of the things that because you make them feel quite welcome, and trying to put outside there that diversity. If you go outside of London, I guess the picture is like different. So when I go to see my mother-in-law, I will go this weekend. Sometimes I'm probably the only non-white British in the village, so that would be quite more difficult to try to get diversity. And even you can question the reason why you want to do something too different. But I think working. You need to develop a good relationship with especially with the local BME group, to make sure that you understand the cultural needs, you understand religious needs, etc., to integrate that into your recruitment, because that will appeal far better for diversity. And that, let me give you an example. So if, let's say that, okay, we want to recruit volunteer for an LGBTQ plus group that we are going to do, and then if someone wants to be a volunteer and goes into the web page and we have no reference whatsoever, so that will not be very appealing for someone who wants to volunteer for that particular project. In the same in way that you want to recruit volunteers in general for whatever, but then suddenly it is in your induction there's no food that is suitable for people. You got only pork, that I love, but not will be everyone's cup of tea. So I think you need to be having all those points in consideration in order to attract that diversity. And then sometimes not falling into a stereotype, but sometimes it's quite easy. That we had 2 very successful work in football, and we thought that that finally we are going to engage with men. No, only 1 man and the rest women in the 2 groups. And then we have a consultation with a men's group to see how we can engage. And the first thing they said, well, football is not a cup of tea. Can we do something about this? And actually, one of the gentlemen is volunteering, teaching philosophy through a Zoom class. So I think sometimes going to those stereotypes could be quite damaging, and you need to make sure that even when you're trying to be inclusive, and let's say, we are going to be doing a group for LGBT, or we're going to do something for the, I mentioned the other day for the carnival, that is not only going to be the carnival for only Caribbean background people, that everyone is going to be welcome. You will be meeting other people, you'll be making social connection of all background. But I think in summary is the number kind of different, or the variety, the kind of demographics are maybe not representing the local communities, because we do not provide those opportunities. And sometimes it's about making sure that those language barriers, cultural barriers, etc., that if people contact you, they feel comfortable to share that with you, saying, look, I will not be able to do this because of this and that, or I don't feel comfortable with this, or I don't feel comfortable with that, or I prefer this, or I prefer that. But if it had to be that flexibility that people then check with you, and you can say, yes, that could be possible or not. It's not impossible, but it is a kind of lengthy task, and you need to put resources, and it doesn't mean money, but it needs time to make those connections.
Certainly, making those reasonable adjustments. And I feel, for, all charities and non-profits, I guess, the priority is their service users and their clients. And I guess for them, to want to work with you and to gain your support, I presume they'd like to see representation of themselves within the people that are working there and who are volunteering there. So I believe by having, a diverse workforce that represents your community, so you're looking at the people that you're servicing and supporting, and just understanding, like, does our workforce represent those people? Do you think that we're going to be able to, support them adequately if we have people that kind of understand their cultural needs within our own workforce and with our own volunteer force? So I think there are benefits all around. But as you said, I think it is a really important point to make that, depending where you are in the UK, that your service users will look different. And I think we need to take account of that and build in, more base when considering what your volunteer base should look like as well. So thank you.
just that insisting in some things that I think is important as well, and I think we managed to get that quite balanced right in Kensington, Chelsea, and UK. Is that what I said before? Is insisting that idea that not necessarily, but quite often we think about, okay, you are going to place volunteers only with people with their own background.
No.
You need to be flexible in both ways, because sometimes people come and say, no, but look, what I want to do is actually to meet other people, to learn about other cultures, to make sure that I understand other point of views, and that's something that is enrich a lot to all of us if we meet people different to or kind of a cohort of friends or whatever. And doing voluntary work is quite a good way of meeting that the people are different, that got interesting stories, well, interesting background. And I think we need to make sure that people understand that you have both choices, and will not be restricted to only one.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point. And I do believe that, having a diverse mix of volunteers creates opportunities to match people that are different to each other. So, yeah, I think that's a great point. Thank you for making that as well, Tasio. Okay, so moving on to the next question then, which is for both of you. Can you share some creative ways to offer flexible and remote volunteering opportunities? I think we've mentioned a few of them here, but it would be great to kind of get, your thoughts on this in terms of how can we use the flexibility of volunteering opportunities to increase the demand based on obviously different people's different working patterns and lifestyles. How can we use flexibility and potentially technology to help to attract a wider pool of talent? Aaishah, do you want to go first on this one?
I was just thinking, I know we mentioned kind of COVID and 2020 earlier. And I think that for us in the charity sector, I guess, we saw, obviously COVID wasn't a great year. I guess we can all agree, but it did bring lots of opportunities in that, we came about with Zoom, and people realized that there were lots of opportunities in regards to going online and offering more flexible or different kinds of roles to people. And now, essentially you can volunteer from anywhere in the world if it's not kind of a face-to-face role. And I think on the back of that, earlier, as Tasio was saying, we used to have a traditional volunteer base where people from local communities will volunteer within their local community, which I think it's still an option and is fantastic. But now, we can kind of have a more wider reach. And, I think the demographic of people that tend to volunteer is changing slightly. Now, if someone has time on their hands, with kind of the economical situation in the UK, for example, they'd rather have a part-time job. However, if we look at people that then do have time to give and are looking to volunteer, it might be more kind of, university students, or it might be working age people, or I guess, professionals that are looking to volunteer because they want to do this as a part of, for example, a volunteering day that they have at their workplace, or something alongside their job. And I think in regards to that, for example, if I use the Macular Society as an example, we have some fantastic volunteer roles, but we have some long-term volunteering roles. Now, that may not appeal to students or a professional who, for example, an optometrist, and they're interested to learn more about macular degeneration and work with people, and because that's what they do as a living, and they want to volunteer at the same time. But our kind of traditional roles don't appeal to them because they don't have the time, or perhaps they don't want to go to a face-to-face session once a month. So something that we've really been kind of, looking towards and interested in doing more of at the Macular Society are micro-volunteering opportunities. So having spoken with professionals now from, I guess, the visual impairment sector, they really want to do something kind of short-term with us. So perhaps it's something along the lines of, fundraising for the Macular Society, or one thing that I think it would be really cool if we were to do it is something along the lines of a lunch and learn. Corporations and so on, they have lunch and learn where someone will talk about something, in the lunch hour, other employees will come and ask questions, and then they'll have like an action at the end. So we talked about kind of putting together a presentation or something of a lunch and learn around the Macular Society and the opportunities of how people can then further get involved. At the end, there could be an action of volunteering with us long term if that's what other employees have the chance to do, or fundraise with us, or do something creative just to kind of raise awareness of what it is that we do within, their clientele, which may be people that come to them that are having vision loss and so on. It's kind of like that tree diagram you have. So if someone comes to us and they only have an hour or two to give, and they really want to do something for the Macular Society because this is what they believe in, then we kind of, I guess, educate them in what we do. We train them to do a presentation to then their employees or friends or colleagues and so on. And then who can then go on to do different aspects and raise awareness for us. So it's about catering to what the volunteer in this day and age wants, as well as what do we need. So I think it's a bit of both. Again, it's that two-way street. So we want people to raise awareness for us, but then how can we utilize the volunteers that are out there that are willing to do that for us, but in kind of, the way they want to do it, essentially. So I think that's one thing we're really toying with, as well as having more university students involved because they have more time to give, but then thinking about what kind of stuff they want to do, and perhaps more remote opportunities or online opportunities through Zoom, because that's what they feel comfortable with. But yeah, those are the two things that we're really looking at right now.
Yeah, some great ideas there. I love kind of using them as advocates to go and spread the message, and that obviously will help you to maybe encourage more volunteers to come. So that's a really great idea as well. Thank you for sharing that. Tasio, I know you mentioned Zoom yoga, which I love the idea of. Any other areas of flexibility and creativity for volunteering opportunities?
Yeah, I think in addition, what Aaishah said is about maybe some of the roles that we traditionally haven't thought that they can give us a hand, but they can, because you can work now from anywhere. We have a volunteer that was a student here, and then he went back to, I think, Finland, and he wanted to carry on there, but there was all issues about insurance, and if something happened with their computer, and all that thing. But role like supporting the fundraising event. I mean, there are plenty of things that you can do online. I mean, traditionally fundraising was to be at the door of the tube station or having an event or so. Now you can actually probably using your computer at home, still on your pajamas, you can do a great work to support charities with fundraising, or things like data entry of things like social media, especially younger volunteers that can give you a hand to design some leaflets. That time consuming, and maybe a small organization doesn't really have the resource to have someone for a week designing the new leaflets and updating these. And so volunteers are great for those things. It can be done from anywhere. You can communicate continuously to review, to approve. So all those roles are quite handy, in addition to the one that really facing clients. And obviously still you have to have some of them that are face-to-face. But there are some of this one that we do through Zoom that most of the organizations have been doing, because the pandemic forced us in one way to do it. But things like the yoga, chair-based exercise, boxing, we got then all things like philosophy, origami, language classes, all those type of things that can be very easily done through Zoom or Teams or so. And if people are not able to do it, we can provide some support with the digital inclusion and services to provide the skills for clients to do so. Volunteers, those traditional roles like befriending that was to go and see someone. Obviously, during the pandemic, it became most of them over the phone, some of them using Zoom, and most of people want to have again back the face-to-face. But still, there is room for a handful of people that maybe prefer to do so. Volunteer that will say, "Well, I'm not able to travel, X number of hours because my commitment with my family or whatever, or work." But still, they would be happy to do making a phone call or do so. And we had a lady who went back to Belgium, to Brussels, and she was still befriending the lady over the phone. So there are always some creative ways. I mean, there was a location that was working really well, and traditionally, before the pandemic, we will not think about that. So it's like, the volunteer went back to Brussels. We stopped our location. We will look for another volunteer. But, then, why you are going to be stopping that relationship? They still work the same, was working the same way. People getting the benefit. It's not as good as face-to-face, but that kind of friendship carry on. And I think that's important, to be flexible and kind of think a bit out of the box and just consider, and then see that work for you. And not one thing that works for us will not work for you. So what with different charities. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. I think being open to different opportunities and adjustments, and to be creative in terms of how you can deliver solutions in new ways, and using technology where possible. Thank you, both of you, for those answers.
Can I just add, just because in the back of what Tasio said, we have two of our most popular services when it comes to volunteering. One is the befriending service. So Tasio's mentioned that, I've just remembered. It's the tagline for when we're looking for volunteers is it's flexible and you can befriend from the comforts of your own home. And it's actually such a popular service, both for befriendees, the service user, as well as our volunteers, because essentially it is online, it's through telephone, and we have a telephone system. So there is no exchange of personal information, i.e. numbers, because we do work with vulnerable adults. So I know one of the issues that most charities have when it comes to things like online sessions and so on is, are we actually protecting our service users, especially if you work with young people or children or vulnerable adults? And that was one of the issues we had. However, because our befriending service is through a telephone system that goes from our site essentially, and there's no exchange of personal information, and we're more than happy to have that online or through the telephone system. And so it is very popular with our volunteers because they get to choose when, which date or which time they want to ring their befriendee, and how often they want to do it. So we don't really interfere in that relationship. We just set those guidelines, and then people befriend each other, and they can be pretty much anywhere in the UK. So that's one service that's really popular. Now, another service we have is the group support service. So we have support groups all across the UK, and they're face-to-face, and people meet up once a month at the same time and date. And it's just about them sharing ideas and getting to meet other people that have macular degeneration. And what happened kind of after 2020 was, because this was a face-to-face service, it pretty much it was very difficult to carry on because obviously everyone went, they were at home. But some of our groups did, and I think it was fantastic for that time because we had never considered it before they went online, or they started having telephone conference groups. Now that obviously we're back to face-to-face, a lot of the groups have reopened. People are coming back to face-to-face because they want that kind of connection. They want to see other people. They want to meet people in their communities and have that. However, some of the groups actually, I guess the ones that are in more rural locations, for example, like North Wales, where they live miles apart and perhaps there's not many public transport, they're stuck to that online system. And the group has thrived. It's become huge, but actually people have started joining because they no longer have to probably travel for half an hour or an hour to get there, especially if perhaps they have eyesight loss and they can no longer drive. So they have that kind of once a month phone-in session for an hour or so, and they still get to talk to the people that they made friends with or they have those connections with. So it's, as Tasio was saying, try to be as flexible as possible while kind of supporting and making sure that your members are safe. So, kind of as creative as you can get is really useful.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. That's a great example. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to hand over to Monica now to answer the next few questions.
Thank you, Atlyn. So, talking about possible solutions, my next question is for Tasio. Tasio, many charities struggle to connect with diverse communities. Can you provide specific examples of how to develop target recruitment strategies that broaden the volunteer base and ensure that they are reaching underrepresented groups?
Well, I think kind of answer the question in some of the statement that I made before. Like you really need to know your client's group and to make sure that the volunteers is kind of matching, is mirroring that, giving them the flexibility and opportunity for everyone. But I'll give you an example. We try now to start with a project about informational advice for benefits and so on for older people who speak speak Arabic, but English maybe is not the strong language. And instead for going forward, it's going ahead and doing so. It's talking to the local groups. They know the clientele. They know better than us, and work together with them. And can be mindful that sometimes those charities maybe are smaller and they see you like you are going to their own patch and you're going to take over them. It's just to make sure that you work in a collaborative way, equal, and say, look, we can and set up the project and make sure that, okay, we are going to get this project and then trying to work together as well to get volunteers, because they will know better people that maybe have some time, they speak Arabic, and they can provide the job better than us, just going with that, we are HUK, Kensington, Chelsea, and we know our business. So I think you need to really make sure that you do your research and you work alongside with other organizations that for this well-being of the client, or volunteer, it should be representing this. But also, when I say before about making sure that if you are going to be trying to get diversity and connect with a specific group, I like the example I gave before about the LGBTQ plus. If you want to connect with the community, to make sure that there are representation, there's literature, there are images in your webpage, in your leaflets, that they feel welcome. So it's no question about, we got now this wonderful project, but we want to attract volunteers, so anyone that got free time. It's not just about free time, as we've been talking for the last 35 minutes. It's about volunteers feeling included, feeling that they support some people that they need, that they gain something, that they feel welcome, etc. So I think that what probably the main point is to make sure that you work alongside other organizations in your local area that can provide that insight that may you not have, to trying to make sure that you bring diversity, especially if you are a kind of bigger organization, that little smaller one that got very limited resources, and then they will struggling to recruit volunteers. And I was mentioned before as well. So when you're trying to do that recruitment, to make sure that the potential volunteers kind of feel that, that's a place that I want to give my time, like give my skills, and they make sure that you're flexible. You're going to have the induction day, taster day, that you have a kind of the flexibility for people that maybe are working mothers, or people who religious commitment or so, just to make sure that they can fit in as much as possible, so you can attract different people from different places. Not sure if I answered the question exactly, but that's kind of the approach.
Thank you so much, because I was going just to say that here, as in Communicate Inclusively, we always talk about the inclusive job descriptions, flexible volunteering options, target outreach by social media or community groups, a bias-free recruitment process, and support and development. And I think that you touch all that point. So thank you so much, Tasio, for your answer again. And I had another question. We have spoken about the importance of the DEI in volunteer recruitment. Can each of you share any insights of how to measure the success of implementing those strategies? How can you demonstrate the positive impact of volunteer engagement, retention, and the overall diversity on your volunteer base? How would you measure that? Aaishah, for
I'd
instance?
like to. Yeah, I was just thinking. I mean, so I spoke to Atlyn on this yesterday, and I said it's very important to be kind of honest as an organization when you're looking at your demographic data, and especially if you value diversity and inclusion, to say, okay, are we actually diverse? Is this, if we say we value this and we want more diversity and inclusion, what are we doing about it? And I think for the Macular Society, because we are fairly, I don't want to say young, we're about 30 years old. So, and we're a medium-sized organization, but for us, diversity and inclusion is really important, because we recognize that macular generation doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care about your color, your age, your ethnicity, your gender, your sexuality. If you're going to get macular, you're going to get macular. It doesn't matter about the color of your skin. Mm-hmm. And so we need to ensure that, we are welcome and we're open and we're transparent, so that people can come to us if they need us. And just kind of a bit of a tangent, but when it comes to, we're talking about just having diverse volunteers, but I think it's really important that we have representation. We don't just need diverse volunteers who have creative ideas and different ideas and so on. We also need diverse service users and clientele, because again, they will also suffer from macular generation. And so I guess it's kind of a catch-22. If volunteers see our service users are from backgrounds similar to theirs, they're more likely to join, because they can share those ideas, or they feel kind of more at home. And same with service users, if they see that our volunteers are diverse, they'll again feel more comfortable there. And so I was trying to work on that. But I think the first step is actually recognizing that maybe we don't have perhaps, much of a diverse demographic or diverse service users or volunteers. And then what can we do? So at the Macular Society, for example, of the last year or so, we've been working on the demographic data. So, asking those crucial questions around ethnicity, age, gender, sexuality, and so on, so that we get an idea of, right, what is our base, who are our service users, where do they come from? And, looking then comparing that to things perhaps like NHS data on macular generation. So perhaps we have, at the Macular Society, for example, we tend to have a majority of middle class people from white backgrounds. However, we know macular generation will also affect someone like myself, for example, who's from a South Asian background. So what do we do to get more people like that and to be able to support them, and then to also have volunteers from that background? So I think for us as a society right now, just understanding where we are and getting that kind of base data to be able to compare to in 3 years' time, 5 years' time is crucial, so that we can look back and say, okay, we were at 90% white, for example, 5 years ago. Now we've got other kind of people from different ethnicities. That's fantastic. So I think in that example, it's just starting off from somewhere and then working towards it. So like Tasio was saying earlier, having perhaps people, that see themselves on our website, in our literature, in our pictures, and so on. And I guess working on people that probably have different languages as a first language, so perhaps not English. So for example, when we publish our publications, we always have them in large print, because obviously we work with people in the visual impairment sector, but then we also have them in the Welsh language, because we work with a lot of Welsh clientele and service users. And then taking that one step further, perhaps, we have that in Arabic or Urdu, or another language, because we're trying to pull in people that perhaps don't speak English or they're not as comfortable with English. So it's trying to kind of accommodate people from different backgrounds as much as possible, so that they feel comfortable with, engaging with our organization, and then, being supported by us or supporting us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aaishah. And Tasio, you already mentioned some points, but would you like to share some other insights?
Well, I think in a way of measuring account your success is the actual retention of the volunteers. So if volunteers stay with us, that doesn't mean that they leave is because you're not good. Sometimes they go at a specific time, and Aaishah was saying before that sometimes are micro opportunities or whatever. That's absolutely fine. But if volunteers or at least a good group of volunteer numbers stay with you, that means that something is you're doing something right, because they stay with you. And obviously then you will have annual surveys to make sure that you capture their opinion. You have like a focus group, or you have the one-to-one supervision, you have group supervision, to make sure that we don't go into that kind of almost prepotent attitude that we professional, we know everything. And sometimes it's quite interesting just to see the point of view, because basically volunteers are the ears of the organization out there, with the clients, and they will give you a really good insight about the client, about the role themselves, and I think that's really important that you listen. And then opportunities like just to recognize, and that could be through volunteers parties, to whatever, so to recognize in a kind of public way, let's say, that the job that they do. And if it kind of taking into account, because when I say you have some focus group, and you have supervision, and they give feedback, listen to those feedback, that's great. But if you just leave it there, means nothing. It's actually to implement those actions. So not everything that everyone says is it possible or whatever. But I think it's important that if people take the time to give you feedback, to provide that insight, that you take some action with it, and then some of them actually are really beneficial for the organization, for the service. Not sure if everything is frozen now. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was it, really. Thank you.
Can I add something, Monica, if that's okay? I think it's great to hear that both Aaishah and Tasio have got data and metrics in place, and I think really, it's important to have some level of analysis that within your organizations, because I feel like when it comes to diversity, when it comes to inclusion, you won't know how well you're doing unless you measure it. And as Aaishah said, you have to start somewhere. So even if you're not doing anything at the moment, it's still worthwhile, doing those surveys. It's still worthwhile, asking for people to complete a demographic form, so you have some understanding. Obviously, take into consideration GDPR, and privacy is really important when it comes to data and how you use it. But I certainly think if you are committed to creating a diverse and inclusive work environment for your colleagues and for your clients and for your volunteers, it's really important to be able to measure how successful it's going and to make those improvements and to listen, as Tasio said. So yeah, some great advice on that one there. Thank you, guys. Back to you, Monica, or is it my turn to continue?
It's your turn, Atlyn.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. So the next question really is around challenges. So we understand that non-profits and charities may face challenges implementing D&I strategies due to limited resources or even staff capacity. Can each of you share how organisations might overcome these challenges and hurdles in terms of being able to implement D&I, even if there are challenges in doing so? Aaishah, would you like to start with that one? Aaishah, can you hear me? Are you okay to start with that answer on the D&I strategy?
I'm not sure if my internet just cut out there, but I missed that question, Atlyn. Would you mind just repeating that?
Yeah, of course, no worries. So it's about the challenges that charities and non-profits face, maybe due to resource or to staff capacity in terms of implementing D&I strategies within their organisations, and what they can do if they are facing those issues to continue with it. If you've got issues, Aaishah, we can go to Tasio first if it's easier.
Done as I've just turned my my camera off. I think that might help. Sorry, Atlyn, just carry on. Yes.
Oh, it's okay. I'm going to ask Tasio first, then, if it's okay. Did you hear the question, Tasio, with regards to the challenges that organisations may face and what they could do to overcome them?
Yeah, I think one of the other things that Carol mentioned before as well is that if you don't have capacity, making sure that maybe you collaborate with other organisations. Then quite often the volunteer centres and most of the time there will be a local volunteer centre that can give you advice, can provide some resources, and just work with the local communities, because if they got some clients that got some needs, they would be quite happy to offer as well support for getting volunteers. I can give you an example. So we have been providing some digital inclusion sessions to one of the Somali groups in the local area, and the level of English skills for the group was quite limited. So we were working with the group itself to try to find a volunteer to translate, and that actually worked quite well. I mean, it is you had to provide more extra support and dedicate more time to that particular group than others, but at the end, it's going back to that flexibility to make sure that the service is provided for people who actually need it. And then I think for attracting some people with different background, again, so trying to make sure that you are quite open and that you show that everyone is welcome. And I know that I've said this many times today, but I think it's really important. And I know because when I was a volunteer here, I really felt welcome, and I felt that I was part of the team. That not because you were a volunteer, then you were treated, as I said before, like a second class, worker or anything. And I think that's important. So if for me as a volunteer, I was being treated that way, I keep all that very much in mind, that you need to offer that. And then sometimes that means that, sometimes that means that you still need to clarify and to make sure that people understand that despite that flexibility, there are certain things that cannot be avoided, like DBSs and GDPR, etc. And people need to understand that. But that flexibility needs to be continually there in order to attract volunteers. Otherwise, you will not attract, and certainly you will not trying to attract diversity. If you have very little resources, I will really recommend to trying to make sure that you contact your local volunteer center, because they are really, really good. I mean, our experience always has been great with them, and the local one, and they can provide plenty of resources that otherwise you wouldn't have access, and they're quite expert on the business here.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much. And just to say, we're going to be opening the floor to questions soon. So if you do have any questions, do please put them in the chat and then we will come to those shortly. Aaishah, did you have anything to add at all in terms of those D&I strategies and how you can overcome any challenges that you may face in being able to access them due to capacity or resource?
Sorry, can you hear me, Atlyn?
Yes, we can, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I'm sorry, my camera is lost now, but I'm here. I'm just going to make a very quick point. I think what Tasio said there is fantastic. But just quickly, I think it's all about making that volunteer service user feel really comfortable with where they are, making sure that you're kind of open and honest with them. You know, perhaps you don't have many other people that look like them, but you're more than happy to have them. And you want to create that kind of environment where they feel comfortable to be able to come and, you know, be a service user or a client or a volunteer as well. And a very quick example I'm going to give is I used to work with an organization called Code Your Future, and they're absolutely amazing. They work with refugees, asylum seekers, and people from low socioeconomic backgrounds. But they had a very, very, very diverse kind of clientele, I guess, you know, because of who they worked with. And they were very aware of people come from different backgrounds. And so they used to they were very careful of I guess they were very kind of happy to celebrate achievements or celebrate, I guess, national holidays of other people's in their backgrounds. So, for example, they will celebrate Diwali and Eid and so on. And I was quite surprised at the amount of people that would join, for example, a Zoom call on an Eid day. And I guess if you don't know, if you're from a Muslim background, Eid is a day that you celebrate. It's kind of like the Muslim Christmas, I would say, and people spend that with friends and family. But I remember joining a Zoom call because they said, you know, we'll have like a Zoom call on each day for people to celebrate. And I was shocked at the amount of people that actually took time away from their friends and family to join this because they were part of this community and they were made to feel really kind of welcome. And they kind of had a 1 hour Zoom session where they shared ideas and just kind of celebrated together on a call. And so it was really kind of poignant for me as well to see that, you know, they were happy to celebrate the diversity of their service users and volunteers and have them do something, and they made it very, very special for them. And it was kind of people from all backgrounds that just joined to find out more and kind of, you know, just kind of congratulate each other. And they did the same thing for Diwali and so on. So it's sometimes really kind of celebrating your volunteers to what they find special or what's important to them. So I think little things like that, they do make a massive impact because people really feel kind of loved and appreciated. So I think that's really useful to do.
Yeah, that's a brilliant example. And I do think, you know, respect and curiosity are really important. And just to add a few other things in terms of those who maybe are struggling in terms of D&I, if it's not their area of expertise, I do think looking at your own organisation is a really good starting point to identify any gaps or priority areas. And then also, I think, like Tasio said, there are lots of free resources online. I mean, we as an organisation have got lots of free resources, but there are lots on YouTube and other organisations that have got checklists and toolkits, etc., that link to a range of different D&I topics and themes. There's also training. You can do paid training or free training for your teams or for a nominated person within your organisation. And then if you do have a small budget, you could potentially use a consultant to help you to develop policies and procedures and processes that you can use for the long term. And so it's an investment that you can use going forward. So thank you for those responses. I'm going to open the floor now to see what questions we have. Can't see any there at the moment, but if you do have any questions, do please ask.
I'm missing now a lot. I'm going to turn my camera off to make sure that maybe the connection is a bit better.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, I'm just going to just say a few more closing words and really just to thank everyone for engaging in this discussion and sharing insights. We hope that the content has been helpful and will support you in celebrating Volunteer Week. Because as everyone said, the volunteers have immense value for all of these organisations. And so, you know, this is a great week to really celebrate that. I just wanted to recap on some of the key takeaways as well. So I'm just going to share my screen again and just go through these slides quickly, if that's okay. So we spoke a bit about inclusive recruitment practices and what you can do. And this was really the main points for this presentation. And so with regards to the job descriptions using inclusive language, you know, Tasio and Aaishah mentioned using images that are very diverse and inclusive so people can actually feel that they are part of it, to avoid biases within the language, to offer flexible volunteering options and micro sessions, as Aaishah mentioned there as well. I think in terms of your campaigns, using social media, reaching out to those community groups is a great way to kind of attract a diverse group of volunteers, but also thinking about the recruitment process. Could people, rather than filling out a form, maybe they could submit a video rather than doing CVs. Maybe you could remove the names of the CVs to make sure it's a blind process. So these are just a few additional tips that you could consider when it comes to creating a really inclusive process for recruitment. So I mentioned those resources that we have available. If you have a look at the Communicate Inclusively website, you've got lots of toolkits there, templates and videos on our YouTube channel. And we've also got a course, it's a 12-week course called the Diversity and Inclusion Changemaker Program. And so if you have anyone within your organization that is interested in becoming a change maker and really learning about what they can do to implement change in your organization, do please recommend this program. It's very comprehensive, and you can just use the website or the QR code here to secure your place. And so I see that Monica's dropped off. I really wanted to thank her, immensely for being my co-host, and also to thank Tasio and Aaishah. It's been a fantastic conversation, and I hope all of our listeners has found it beneficial. Monica's back. I was just saying thank you, Monica, for being a fantastic co-host.
Thank you so much for having me here, and thank you so much, especially to come with such a few notice. So hope to see you all soon.
Yeah, thanks, Monica. And yeah, Aaishah, we really appreciate you coming on board. Michelle from Save the Children was unwell and you stepped in at the last minute. So we really, really do appreciate you coming on, and you shared some amazing insights. And the same for Tasio.
I was going to say thank you so much for having me. I really, really enjoyed that. And I think for me, just having kind of Tasio and yourselves on there as well has been great, because I think I've definitely picked some hints and tips up. I'm sorry you can't see my face, but this has been amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, brilliant. And Tasio, great. I'm so pleased that you were on the call, because, you're doing so much great work at Age UK. So, really appreciate that as well. We have got one question from Isabel. She just says, does anyone work with any particular language translation services that are affordable to charities? I don't know if Tasio or Aaishah, if you've got any recommendations for a translation service for Isabel.
We are not using anyone. We used to have one in the past, but it was like really expensive. Now we're trying to look for volunteers or people that because again, it's the resources are very limited. So and using the connection that we have, really to trying to get the support and internally. So because we got a quite good diversity of people as a member of staff, or within our volunteers. So we cover a good number of languages. I think if you just do a Google search, you will find some of them. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Any recommendations from you, Aaishah, at all on language?
No, I would say unfortunately the same as Tasio there. We do just kind of use anyone in-house, or we essentially pay translators to do, especially if we're doing publications, for example. So we have a Welsh translator who will do who will translate our publications into Welsh and so on. It's just human power at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I did some work with Refugee Action Kingston earlier this week, and they spoke about using their volunteers actually for translation services and also staff. So maybe, Isabel, that could be part of your recruitment drive to see if you can identify people that can speak the languages that you need for your charity. But thank you so much for that question. And thanks again, everyone, for joining. We really appreciate that. And if you have any additional questions, do please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, take a look at our website, or do drop us an email at hello@communicateinclusively.com. And just a final thank you to our panelists and to Monica. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I wish everyone a wonderful afternoon. Take care.
Thank you very much for having. Thank you very much for having us. I think having some issues with the technology, but I hope that that people were able to hear. Thank you very much for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks again.
Have a lovely day, everyone.
Bye-bye.